That guy's just a clown. G'day, Paul from Small Crown Productions here. Welcome to day 52 of the 100 Days of Shakespeare event. Tonight we're looking at the life of William Kemp, the last Elizabethan clown. So not much is known about Kemp's early years. We have an estimation that he was born in about 1560, and we don't really have anything else after that for the next 20 or so years. So there is some records that indicate he was part of the Leicester's men who then toured in 1585-86 through Denmark. And there are some records that indicate that he may have been part of the Leicester's men before that, and then actually spent some time fighting in the 80 Years' War and then came back to the Leicester's men. Now, he next shows up in some kind of written records around 1590, having already made for himself a name as a clown. And there is a reference to him in a play that was written in 1590 called An Almond for a Parrot. And this is what the intro to the play says: "To the most comical and conceited Cavalier Monsieur de Kemp." So, you know, that kind of thing happened quite a lot in the plays, where they would reference other actors or other playwrights or other plays. And so it's a, you know, pretty standout type of reputation to have, to be specifically named in the introduction to a play like that. In 1592, we know he was part of the Lord Stranger's men, and in 1594, the Lord Stranger's men was disbanded, and then he and Burbage and Shakespeare joined the Lord Chamberlain's men. So he performed with the Lord Chamberlain's men, but in 1599, he leaves the Lord Chamberlain's men. There are two reasons why Kemp is believed to have left the Lord Chamberlain's men. Neither of them are actually 100% confirmed, but pretty likely possibilities. So the first is actually that he was believed to be involved in the piracy of Falstaff's last play, The Merry Wives of Windsor. So Falstaff is a character that appears in a number of Shakespeare's plays, and it is the type of character that would have been written in for an actor like Kemp to play and to keep bringing back to the stage. It's a character that the audience would have loved, and they would have loved seeing Kemp in that role. So it's very likely that Falstaff was no longer in any of the plays after that, because Shakespeare didn't want to write him in based on the fact that Kemp had played him. Speculation? Absolutely, but very possible. Now, the other reason is actually around the type of performer that Kemp was. So Kemp is known as the last Elizabethan clown of the day. And these types of actors were very, very common in Elizabethan plays, and were a real carryover from some of the very early parts of the playgoing experience, where you would have a very highly comedic character that was there to help break the ice and you know, get the audience laughing and help them have a good time. But they were notorious improvisers. So the last main clown before Kemp was Richard Tarleton. And so Kemp was known as an improviser, and his comedy was actually more attributed to his dance and jigs that were part of that playgoing experience as well. In the early parts of the Elizabethan playgoing experience, these dances and jigs were used to accompany plays. So sometimes you'll hear of them finishing a play and ending with a jig. So these are comedic kind of songs and dances that helped let the audience leave on a real happy high note. Now, as playgoing developed, it became less of that type of work and more dramatic, like Hamlet and that sort of thing. And it's actually a reference in Hamlet that people believe is the reason that Kemp was kicked out of the Lord Chamberlain's men. And the quote comes from Hamlet himself when he's talking to the first player, when the players come to do the dumb show in the castle. And Hamlet says, "O reform it altogether, and let those that play your clowns speak no more than is set down for them." So there is a belief that as playgoing changed, so did that role. Over time, you see that type of role become less and less required. And so, although they may still have parts written for them, Dogberry in Much Ado About Nothing is a great example of a character like this that would have probably been written for an actor like Kemp, so that he can come out, have a few scenes where he's essentially just playing the fool, but it's still somewhat contained and doesn't draw away too much from the rest of the play. Well, the belief is that he couldn't stick to the script, and so therefore had to go. Whether it was to use his infamy and the people's love to kind of help him set off in a new trajectory, who knows? But in February 1600, he set off on a Morris dance from London to Norwich. Now, there is some account that this was actually done as a bet, and that he, in order to win the bet, had to Morris dance his way from London to Norwich. So apparently there were about 9 days of Morris dancing in this sort of 4-week period that it took him to get from London to Norwich. And then after that, he is said to have gone through Calais, Italy, and Germany. Not Morris dancing that I'm aware of, but touring through those countries. And then he returns back to London in 1601. In 1602, we know that he had a loan from Philip Henslow, who was the owner of the competitive theatres to the Globe, and in 1602 and 1603, he actually performed with Henslow's Worcester's Men. Now, there's no formal record of his death. There are some writings that allude to him between 1603 and 1608. There is some speculation that he may have died as late as 1608, but the most likely reference actually references his death sometime not too long after his Morris dance, and puts his death somewhere around 1603. And so with that, we come to the end of Kemp's life. That 43-ish years that he's believed to have lived brings us to the end of the great Elizabethan clowns. Thanks very much. If you got something out of this video, it would be great if you could give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and of course, share it with somebody if you think they might get some value out of it as well. While you're here, check out some of these other Shakespeare videos, and I will see you on the next one.